There are currently three types of investors out there right now. The first type of investor is the one that thinks that we are going to have another stock market crash. The second type of investor is the one that thinks that we are in the clear and we are just going to keep going up, up, and up. And the third type of investor is the one that just doesn't care and they just want to take advantage of the volatility of the stock market. Hi guys, my name is Bon, and today we are going to be talking about my view of where I stand on the stock market and why I think that there won't be another stock market crash. And before we start, I would just like to remind you guys that if you really like my videos, please give it a thumbs up, okay? That's all I ask. It really helps me out a lot. So thank you, and let's go. So if we just take a look at what was happening in the economy last week, we would think that there is absolutely no way that the stock market could be doing well. Last week, we just had the data for the total amount of unemployment in April, and that was over 20 million people filed for unemployment in April. 20 million people filed in April. And they say that that was actually better than what they expected. They expected a lot worse. 20 million people, like that's how bad of an economy that we are in, and that people are saying that 20 million unemployment people is not that bad, like it could be worse. But anyways, last week we had a total of over 33 million people unemployed. 33 million people unemployed since March. The COVID cases in America are over 1.3 million cases. The number of COVID deaths is over 78,000 people. I mean, and just those numbers alone are terrifying. And if someone who has no idea what's going on in the world and just looks at those numbers, they would see that we are in the worst state we have ever been. But even though we are in a very, very bad shape, the stock market doesn't seem to think so. Last week, the S&P was up 3.5%. They are only 14% behind from their all-time high. Dow Jones went up 2.5%, and it is 18% from its all-time high. And the Nasdaq was up 6%. 6%. And it is only 8% from its all-time high. All-time high. It's only 8% below its all-time high. I mean, if you look at the Nasdaq by itself, you probably wouldn't even think that there's anything wrong with the economy right now, because it's only 8% down from its all-time high. All-time high. It's only 8% down. I mean, that's just crazy. Okay? So the question is, what is going on? And looking at these two polar opposites, you can understand why some people are thinking that there is no more stock market crash. We are good. While the other people are seeing that everyone is unemployed, so many people are going hungry and not paying their bills. Of course, we're going to have another stock market crash. Now, the question becomes, are we going to have another stock market crash? Well, in order to answer that, we need to talk about what causes a stock market crash. Okay, so there is no one reason for a stock market crash, but here is an overall picture of the commonalities of a stock market crash. Okay, so first off, there is a disaster. The disaster could be a pandemic like it is right now, or the housing crisis, or something that triggers and it causes a snowballing effect that just gets worse and worse and worse. So, first, and there's the disaster. And after that disaster, there is uncertainty. A stock market crash comes from the uncertainty in that we do not know how the economy is going to go and how far it's going to sink down. And when people are unsure of how bad things can get, they become afraid, and when they are afraid, they panic and they take all their money out of the stock market, which causes it to crash some more. Let's take a look at this stock market crash and see how it fits into the pattern. So the first 2 months of the year started out really, really well. Even though we knew of the coronavirus cases, President Trump came out and said that everything is fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's just like the flu. So because of that, we had some sort of expectation and we didn't think that it was such a big deal. That's why the stock market rallied until late February. But then the virus started spreading a whole lot more. And then on March 13th, President Trump came out and said that we are in a national state of emergency. That caused so much panic. It caused people to buy up toilet paper, buy up Clorox. It just causes mass panic, and the stock market crashed until March 23rd, 10 days later. And the reason is because of uncertainty. We had no idea what was going on. We had no idea how to fight this pandemic. We had no idea what we were going to do because We've never faced something like this before. So what about now? Why don't I think that we will have another stock market crash? Well, let's give out a few scenarios. Okay? And the first scenario is that what if this pandemic gets worse? What if reopening the country causes a massive spike in the number of coronavirus cases and a lot more deaths? What happens then? Well, if that happens, then we would go back into quarantine. But just because we will go back into quarantine doesn't mean that the stock market will crash again. Because, for one, we've already been in quarantine. We are just getting out of quarantine. So we know what that's like. And number two, it's expected. We already expect that the number of cases will go up. Because we expect it, it doesn't come as a shock, and people are not going to panic and pull all their money out of the stock market. What will likely happen is that the stock market will slowly decline over the few months or a year. Now, what if there is a new disaster from this virus that we have not realized yet? Well, if that happens, then we know that at the very least, the government will bail us out. They will send us checks. They will give us a lot of money to stay inside and to be okay to ride out this pandemic, to ride out the next disaster. Okay, so this is why I do not think that we will have another stock market crash. First off, if things get really bad, then the government will give us another stimulus check. They will provide us with a lot more money to help us go through this really tough time. They've done it before, and if things get really bad, they'll do it again. For them, it's not a problem of if, it's a problem of how much. That's what they're arguing about in Congress. We will definitely see some further form of government support. We just don't know how much yet. And the second reason is that the tech and biotech companies are really rallying. I mean, those companies have been unaffected by the pandemic since the very beginning. Even though they dropped a lot in March 23rd, a lot of the tech companies have made almost all their profits back. Amazon is at an all-time high. So is Netflix, so is Twilio. The tech companies are doing fantastic in this pandemic because everyone is staying at home. They are online. They are not doing anything. So they're just consuming a lot of internet. And the tech companies are the main reasons why the index have been growing so well throughout the last month. Even though companies unrelated to tech are dying like flies, the tech companies are holding up the indexes and they are pretty much pulling up all the dead weight. And there is a lot of dead weight. But the tech companies are big enough so that they can carry the people who have already fallen off. And the third reason is that states are starting to reopen again. People are sick of staying at home. They are sick of not being able to do the things that they love. They're sick of not being able to talk to some of their friends face to face. So when the states reopen again, that causes a lot of hype. And a lot of hype and a lot of news causes the stock market to rise. Even though restaurants, hotels, and airplanes probably won't see all their customers rushing back in, it is still a move in the right direction. And the investors are willing to invest now at a low price, and they're willing to wait until things get back to normal. Now, let's talk about what I am not saying. I am not saying that life will get better. Right? I am not saying that the worst is behind us. I am not saying that the economy won't go down deeper and deeper into debt. Because they might. With all the unemployment out there, with all the businesses that are occupying at half capacity, things could get worse before they get better. But that is in terms of the economy. That does not mean that the stock market will do the same thing. But also, what I am not saying is that I am not saying that the market won't go down. Okay? The market very well could go down, but what I am saying is that it won't have a sharp decline. It is more likely that they will slowly decline over the upcoming months or to a year. So even if the market did go down, I'm pretty sure it won't crash like it did in March because we are already expecting it. And we know that if something does happen, the government will come out and they will support the economy. So because of that, because we know what is going on and we know what to expect, then we can be very assured that things will not be as bad as it was before. Okay, so that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree with my assessment? Do you guys not agree with my assessment? How do you think the next 2 or 3 months in America is going to look? Guys, so thank you so much for watching. If you guys really like the video, please give it a thumbs up, okay? It really helps me out. just hitting that like button will help me out tremendously. Okay? And if you like, you can subscribe too. Okay, so until next time, bye.